Good Shabbat to everyone. Great to be here in our sanctuary together. For those who are watching online, great to have you with us as well as we have another wonderful opportunity together to be able to join for our Kabbalat Shabbat service, to be able to welcome Shabbat together as a community. And for those who are watching online and are wondering, we saw that weather forecast. It was a little warm too, so we figured it would be nice to be inside, to be able to do this as a community as well. And as we always do, it's always nice to get to know who's a part of our community. So if you haven't done so yet, if you're here with us at Temple, if you want to take a moment to turn to the people who are next to you, behind you, in front of you, wish them a Shabbat Shalom, introduce yourself if you don't already know them, and if take a moment as well to post something in the chat to let us know you're here, because Rabbi Mike's going to respond to you in a moment. Good Shabbat. As we join together for Shabbat, it's always that opportunity for us to be able to soak in moments of life, to be able to enjoy the time that we have, people that we're with. And as we gather together in person and online, that's what we get to do with our Kabbalat Shabbat service, a service that was started by the mystics in Tzfat. The idea that as the sun was setting, they would actually go out into their fields dressed all in their whites and would welcome the Sabbath bride there, and then would make their way back to their homes. And so this service, we continue with the Kabbalat Shabbat service. We like to, just like the mystics, sing a little bit. You don't have to know the words to the prayers. If you want to hum along with Cantor as she's singing them, that's great. If you just want to close your eyes and sit back, get comfortable in one of the seats or in your couch or your bed, you can do that too. Some of you are thinking, wow, great, we can bring a bed to Temple next time. But the idea is that we welcome Shabbat, this time for us of peace, this time for us to taste a little bit of what our world can be like, a little bit of perfection. So for a moment, as we begin, I invite you just to close your eyes and to look within. Begin by focusing on your breathing. Slowly inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. Continuing to focus on your breath, on the rise and the fall of your chest. Breathe in, breathing in God's gift to us. Breathe out, sharing your gift with the world. As you continue to focus on your breath, take a moment to think about this week's Torah portion. It's a Torah portion called Korah, about a leader who rose up against Moses, his brother and his sister, challenging their authority. His followers, Datan and Abiram, and another group of 250 people. As they made their way through the desert, they had some complaints, some things they disagreed with. Picture yourself there in the wilderness. Who would you support? Hopefully not Dantan, Aviram, and Korach, because they were swallowed up eventually by the earth. But it was the reason that gives us insight into how we should live our lives. We're told that one of the reasons that they may have been swallowed up was because their argument was, in a sense, petty. It wasn't something that needed to be discussed, challenged. Later in the Mishnah and Pirkei Avot, we're told that there are two types of arguments. One is an argument for the sake of heaven, the other one's not. Korach and his followers chose an argument that wasn't for the sake of heaven. So what we learn from this is to start to think about what is an argument for the sake of heaven. Somebody here at Temple gave me a great insight to that years ago. Just before I got married, they said, choose your battles wisely. Think about what arguments are really important. And that if tomorrow, or a week from now, or a year from now, it doesn't really matter, then that's probably not an argument for the sake of heaven or marriage. But if it is, then that's something worth discussing, something to work out. We look at our world today and realize sometimes that some of our arguments aren't for the sake of heaven. We pick fights, create battles, argue, sometimes maybe just because it's fun. But what we need to remember is the lesson from this week. Are these arguments for the sake of heaven? Or are we like Korach and his followers? So as we begin Shabbat, we keep that in our minds. Today is supposed to remind us of what our world can be like. Taste of paradise, of perfection. Taste of what it would be like if all of our arguments were for the sake of heaven. And so as we join together in services, whether you're at home or here with us, you don't need your prayer book tonight, as I mentioned before, but if you'd like to follow along, you can follow it and find it on the Temple Shir Shalom website under the resources section of Friday night Shabbat services, or here in person in the seats in front of you as well. And we begin with our call to worship as we rise together.
בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Rabbi was talking about the Torah portion a moment ago and about the battle that ensued when Korach and his followers challenged Moses. And one of the commentaries talks about the fact that maybe it was really about leadership and why people choose to be leaders and what their aspirations are. That if it's all about themselves and all about their own aggrandizement, then there might be an issue with it. And that seemed to be what Korach was thinking rather than the betterment of community and the idea of what community can be. Hearing us sing together reminds us of how community can be together and how we can join together, rather than just singing on your own in front of your screen this past year. I don't know how many of you sang out loud with us during services. Gail did. Thank you, Gail. So some of you did. Occasionally I would be singing with Cantor, and then I hear my wife in the other room laughing at me, or with me, I mean, so encouraging me. But it was awkward, right? But when you're in a community, you have the ability to overcome our awkwardness because you realize you're not alone. And if you sing and you sound good next to someone, great. And if you sound okay, you sound good because you're next to someone singing. You know, part of relaxing and giving yourself a moment on Shabbat is to think through what matters most, to think through what makes us who we are, to think through what helps us in difficult times. You know, one of the commentaries about Korach is that we need to combat that which we're afraid of in life. That moment, whether we see it as factual or not, was what Moses was afraid of in that time, the challenge in front of him. We've all overcome this fear in this past year and being together. Some of us are still worried about coming together, legitimately so. I mean, in the sense of just because our own anxiousness of that, which is real, we have this sort of PTSD in getting through this year. But the idea of overcoming what our fears are acknowledging, what are you afraid to do? If you could do anything without the fear, without being afraid of failure, without being afraid, what would it be? What would we do in this world, differently or not? Some of us came here and overcame that hurdle, because that was a fear. Being together again. Some of us feel affirmed by it and embraced, and we're ready to jump right in. We all respond differently. But recognizing the uniqueness that we each have, and we bring together in that, and respecting each other in it, is part of the blessing as well. We say, Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom b'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim ufro solenu sukat shlomecha. We say that prayer, let us lie down in peace, God. Permit us to wake up, security of knowing we're safe and loved. Be a shield around us, keep enemies, disease, violence, homelessness, hunger far away from those we love. We say that because we have fear. But being a part of community, knowing we can overcome fear, helps us live, helps us stay connected, helps us feel whole.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu L'shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu L'shalom. Let there be love. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from
we change around the melody sometimes in our prayers, and some of you always appreciate that. Some of you tell us not to when we do that. Because we like the rhythm. We like what's regular. We like, what we're used to in our lives. And that, in a sense, is the fixed part of prayer, right? And, of course, the rabbis teach us of the keva, the fixed prayer, and the kavanah, the inspiration. And we need that which is regular, which is fixed, in order to lift ourselves up into something that's inspiration or inspirational. It's difficult to get there. It's difficult to find that time. We call this meditation Shabbat because we want to just breathe and be present and have a moment without any worries, just to be together. And within ourselves, just to reflect and to look on our past week and to see the blessings that have been there, see a challenge to overcome. And sometimes just repeating those same words, that same melody, is that rhythm we need to get ourselves to think deeper thoughts, to recognize that which is a blessing there. So, yes, we chant the Avot, the Imahot, in a moment. But as we do that, you can think the words of the prayers, and you're always welcome to open up your prayer books to that as well. You can think about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel and their connections with God, or you can think of whatever comes to your mind. In the midst of prayer, the ancients say, Gam Ze Kadosh. Whatever comes to your mind, this too is holy. The prayers are a vehicle to get us into some holy space, to get us to think about what matters most. We use ancient ideas and modern ideas. We use the poetry of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel with the music of our friend Dan Nichols to think about what Shabbat is, to lift us into that moment as well. So wherever it takes you, Gam Ze Kadosh. This too is holy.
The thought has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind, joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the world, scattering the song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day, and eternity utters a day. Ay, 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 ay. שוקל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בגבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Being together on Shabbat in the presence of Torah. So we study in our conversations Torah, so we connect with Torah and seeing and having it part of our lives. So as it's been a source of strength for our people, literally for thousands of years, does it continue to be so for all of us as well. And linking ourselves with those in need of healing and strength in our congregation, in our community, and our families at this time. And understanding the connections as we mention those names, we connect with our friends and family who are in need. Mishiberach Avatenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov, Ve'imotenu Yisrael Kolei Avrachel. Hu Yibrach et the Cholim, merciful God, who's blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Becca, Leah, and Rachel. Send your blessings to our loved ones who are stricken with illness and anxiety, especially those friends and family we think of at this time. Alyssa Ioto, Larry Burke, Grace Geraldine Carafelli, Karen Kasman, Molly Cotant, Ed Egan, Barbara Esrig, Asher James Figueroa, Sandy Flair, Gracie Goldman, Joseph Goldring, Lola Goldring, Sandy Gorosh, Batia Babesha Panina, Charles Gross, Susan Goralnik, Hank Heiser, Helen Indiana, Jane Jacobs, Serafina Coffrin, Art Lazar, Marta Lazar, Henry Leopold, Barry Levine, Libby McIntyre, Zoe Marcus, Beth Margolin, Joyce Mazza, Sharon Mizell, Nancy Morrow, Perry Moss, Lori Moss, Scott Miles, Rabbi Robert Nosenchuk, Rezel Bat Leah Miriam, Leah Elisheva Bat Avram Bachana, Melanie Pohl, James Raftery, Cecile Ratcliffe, Joanne Reed, Alan Rosen, Morgan Ross, the St. Amman family, Micha Chuna Ben Sima Freda, Amy Selmanoff, Danny Shepard, Barbara Storm, Naomi Weiss, Connie Wahlberg, Helene Wolf, as well as the 53,117 American troops who have been injured in Iraq and Afghanistan to date. All the names in our hearts. Baruch atah Narafel Cholim. Blessed are you, God, who gives strength to those in need.
May the source of strength
O God, who heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, give comfort to those who mourn. Give them courage and strength, compassion and kindness, and restore to them a sense of life's goodness. Give them the ability to accept the mystery of life and let them soon know peace. Help them endure that which no one can understand. And let us say, Amen. On this Shabbat, we think of those friends and family who have been taken from us in these most recent days, whose Shiva, Shloshim, and Shana we mark. Barbara Cohen, Angelo Liberati, Jan Brody, Jacqueline Milgram, Steve Barkin, Julia Emmer, Tom Glasscock, Alan Gelfond, Leonard Abrams, Isai Pesakov, Judy Barman, Alice Ahart, Carol Rock, Renee Firestone, Barbara Shear, the 7,038 Americans in our armed forces who have been killed in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the surrounding areas to date, and the 599,025 Americans who have lost their lives to coronavirus. And to their names we add those whose yard sites we mark, those of whose anniversary of passing we lovingly commemorate. F. Barry Abrams, Molly Alpert, Joel Bodson, David Brown, August Francis Caligari, Joe Caruso, Marilyn Effersey, Rose Foster, Lena Goldberg, Dave Hennig, Harry William Himmelhoff, Harriet William Himmelho, Harry Hockfield, Harry Herman Horovitz, Robert Coffrin Sr., Sam Lefton, Helen Lenhoff, Alice Levin, Matilda Liss, Josephine Helen Masiak, John Mahakian, Sally Milgram, Marlene Miller, William Bill Hitler, Esther Plotnick, Sylvan Potashnik, Herbert Reinheimer, Arthur Robinson, Joseph Rothman, Dr. Misha Sachs, Manuel Siegel, Edward Sirota, Henrietta Sofer, Evelyn Soroka, Gary Dennis Stern, Maurice Larry Stern, Ethel Toby, Bernice Patricia Willis, Mildred Seidman, the soldiers of Normandy D-Day, along with all the names in our hearts, and those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, do we join together in the immortal words of the Mourner's Kaddish as found on page 46 of our prayer books that are with us or on your screens. Yitgadal, v'yitkadash, shemei rabbah, be'amad, divarach, hirutei, v'amlich malchutei, b'chayachon, u'vyomachon, u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala, u'vizman kariv, v'imru, amen. Yehei shmei rabbah, mivarach, le'olam, omei amaya, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmei d'kedusha, b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushvachata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, huya se shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn. Comfort to all the bereaved among us here and everywhere. As together we say, amen.
Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
It's so nice to hear you all sing and kibitz and just be with us. And maybe I'll keep just feeling that way and saying that, but it feels like you sing so much more than you used to 16 months ago. You were much more passive in the seats back then. So it's good to be here together. A couple things to share. One, our Saturday morning services are at 9 a.m. for our summer schedule. So, and they're still remote, but starting in a week, they will be in person as well, the 9 a.m. service, and that's a quick Shabbat morning minyan, no more than a half an hour. And that will go through August until we start our B'nai Mitzvah season again. Just breathe. You guys gotta relax a little bit. This Thursday night at 7 p.m. is our annual meeting. I know that excites you all greatly, and but you should know about it, and the good things that are happening at Temple, and we have proxies here for you if you're not going to make the meeting, just so you can say, oh yeah, the board slate looks good. Allison Parr seems like she'll be a great new president for Temple Shir Shalom. So we're excited about Allison being installed as our new president at Temple, starting this. So that's right, she's a glutton for punishment. So. And again, the weather should help us. Next Friday we'll be outside, God willing, though the air conditioning is nice today. And we guess we'll be okay. So what do you know? I don't. So a moment of Tish, and then we'll say Motzi and send you guys off on your ways to enjoy some dinners and stuff. Yes, Audrey. Two things. Of Judaism, yeah. So the question was, if a Jewish man marries a non-Jewish woman, Jewish woman marries, I'm dyslexic in my hearing. A Jewish woman marries a non-Jewish man, and they raise a child to be a Jew. Oh, that's why. I'm so confused, Audrey. It's good you guys are all paying better attention than me. And the child's raised, yes. Thank you. The child, so according to Jewish law.
Finish the questions so there's online.
Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi, reminding me of that. So.
This way we actually make sure you get it right. So.
Thank you. Jewish woman marries a non-Jewish man. They raise their child as a non-Jew. Is the child considered a Jew according to Jewish law? So according to Jewish law, if you're born of a Jewish mom, you are a Jew. Okay, no matter how you are raised. However, does that mean you're going to be accepted in the community? Let's say you were baptized and things like that, it may be a challenge. But, and you can make Aliyah and become an Israeli. Not you, but that child could be an Israeli. Would you be considered a Jew in Israel or an Israeli? Probably just an Israeli. Because Israel's law of return is, if one of your 4 grandparents is a Jew, you're allowed to be a citizen of Israel, because that was Hitler's determination to see if you'd be murdered or not and sent to a camp.
There was actually a case like that, that from post-Holocaust, there was part of the kinder transport, there was a child that was sent off to live and was raised Catholic. So born to a Jewish family, but raised Catholic because his parents sent him away from Nazi Germany to be saved. And he became a monk. Brother Daniel was his name. And he applied.
Then became a rabbi. No, sorry.
And he applied for citizenship of Israel to be able to make Aliyah. And so it went to the Supreme Court of whether. We got to fix this thing.
If he'd be a Jew or he could be Israeli.
Yeah.
And so Brother Daniel was allowed to go to Israel, but he was not considered a Jew, and he had to apply for citizenship under a different auspices. The Supreme Court turned him down as that because he was not a Jew, because he was practicing Catholicism. He was a Franciscan monk. So, was that your full? You said you had 2 parts. Was that the full thing?
Thank you.
The Grant girls always won.
Wait, let her keep going here.
Okay.
The last time.
to,
Thank you.
so Rabbi Daniel's his trivia night on the Wednesdays once a month. Thank you, Audrey, was, really appreciating the work he put into that. We had, as many as 15 teams sometimes competing, and the Grant girls were always hotly contested in it, so it was fun. So thank you for noticing his hard work in that and appreciating that too. And for those
and I know that our programming committee wants to bring that back. They told me to stop over the summer, but at sometime in this fall and back in the winter, I'm sure that we'll be doing that again online so that people can participate.
I'll give you a cell phone. You can just call him up on Wednesdays and ask him trivia if you want. You take that. Yes, Lori. Yeah. Anyone could choose to become a Jew, right? Kurt affirms that one. So, what's that? If he converted to Judaism, but the specific Brother Daniel story, the man was a practicing Catholic. So this child, yes, anyone can affirm that and go through a process of conversion. Judaism, a process of conversion, happens in 2 ways. One is through a process of study first, and then going to the mikvah, and you're accepted as a Jew and affirmed. No one's ever to ask you about how you became a Jew. Were you born a Jew? You're a Jew completely. And so, so that's how conversion still occurs in our community today. We also affirm, well, you're recognized as a Jew by a Beit Din, a rabbinic court. So when someone converts to Judaism with one of us as their sponsors, we bring a third rabbi to the table to, quote, interview the person, but to meet the person and to know that this person is recognized as a part of the Jewish community. Now, the question in Israel then, is that recognized when Rabbi Daniel and me say someone's a Jew, right? Or do the Orthodox don't recognize our conversions necessarily? Though I heard a wonderful story this past week, and the story was about a woman who had emigrated to America, had married a Jewish man who was a soldier and abroad during World War II, and she never converted away from Catholicism, but she raised a Jewish family, and she lived a Jewish life. And her husband died unexpectedly, early 50s, and was buried in the traditional cemetery. And after being buried, she recognized that they wouldn't allow her to be buried there. Right away, she realized that and got very nervous. And the traditional rabbi said, you've raised a Jewish family, you've lived a Jewish life, and in 1 week, he completed her conversion and made her a Jew. So, right? I mean, and I was really... I appreciated that because I thought that's what Shalom Bayit is. That's what, the peace of our community is that we want. And we have many non-Jews who are part of our community who may not have converted for a lot of reasons but feel connected to it. So anyone can choose to do that who wants in that way too. Yes, Michael?
So when somebody converts, it's not just the class, the study, the trip to the mikveh that they have, and part of that Beit Din as well, the rabbinic court that affirms that as they're going through. But there's certain statements that one affirms, that they believe in one God, that they commit to standing with the Jewish people, they commit to continuing their study, they commit to being a part of the Jewish community. And so it's those affirmations as well that is part of the conversion process, which that's what adds to it. It's not just that I was born Jewish, but I'm making that choice, and this is something that I'm going to continue to do into the future. Before we do that, though, there's one online. Yeah. I just want to make sure, because we have some online watchers as well. So Mitch Klein asked the question about Representative Ilhan Omar's comments about Israel this week, yesterday, and any comments about those. And for anybody that didn't see them, because I just looked them up, that's the benefit of being in front of the computer as well.
Nice, Rabbi. You're not allowed to go surfing the web during services. You can only connect with those watching services.
She compared the United States and Israel to Hamas
And Taliban.
and Taliban, which is the comment. And then I guess over the other comments, I didn't read all the stories that were up here. I wasn't surfing as we were going through, but it looks like during the last 21 hours has been backstepping some of those comments as well.
She did, but it's still out there. But so Nancy Pelosi and others in Congress and 12 congressmen sent out a resolution, condemning her words as well and speaking out against it. And the rest of the Congress really affirmed that too, that what she said was so egregious.
So, Mitch, my comment would be, like those other Congress people, I disagree with it fervently and can add to it as well. But what I will say that there's also a piece for us to understand. And I think that we had some of our teenagers a number of years ago who were part of an interfaith dialogue between temple kids here, so Jewish kids, and Muslim kids that were in the Dearborn community. And we met a few times during the year for a number of years, called it TAJ, the Teen Alliance of Arabs and Jews. And part of the conversation that we were having with those kids was to be able to understand where the other teens were coming from and their perspective on things. And one of the things that we did was we went on a tour of the Holocaust Museum. And it was interesting to hear the Arab teens' perspective when they said, this is our story of what's happening in Palestine. Now, as I hear that, as I hear people say that Israel's an apartheid state, as I hear people saying that there's genocide that's going on here, I fervently disagree with that. But listening from their perspective, they wouldn't say that maybe they would say there's genocide that's going on. I would disagree with it. But they see similarities in the story of what happened during the Holocaust with their narrative as well. And I think that as we listen to Representative Omar, there's a community and a perspective that she brings that is different from our perspective. And it doesn't make either one of us as right or wrong as we bring that to the table. I'll say that those comments were wrong, but it's interesting to think of where somebody else might be coming from as we're having that conversation and be able to understand when we're engaging in dialogue to know where they're coming from so that you can respond to them in an appropriate way as well. The comments are wrong. Israel, the United States are not like the Taliban and Hamas. I can list lots of different reasons why. But to understand where her community might be coming from, to be able to engage in that conversation to say, here's why she's wrong as well.
And now we think of the sweetness of this day and the joy in this moment. Always good transitions. And so, good dialogue. Well, you want to just share what you're doing Sunday? Or is that, no, don't forget it.
It's off the record. But
Oh, sorry. He's doing, Rabbi off the record is meeting, but we won't talk about the meeting he's having with some imams, but that's off the record. Sorry, whoops.
Improving community.
If you want anything to be a secret, don't tell Rabbi Moskowitz. I'm just kidding. No, it's good. I mean, like Imam Kazwini was here on the Bima, if you recall, after the attack in Pittsburgh and the murders of Jewish lives in Pittsburgh, and he's a friend of mine. We often don't talk about Israel because we feel very differently about that, and he has said things that I find offensive, and he probably would think that about me at times, but we still can get along and dialogue and grow through that as well. So he's not a part of this conversation, but Rabbi is president of the Michigan Board of Rabbis right now, and so he has these opportunities that are really important. And so off the record, maybe next week at Tish will ask him about it. And so community is what we are, what we give for the sweetness of this day as we join with Cantor.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei uri hagafen. Amen. Let there be love
There's hope.
and understanding among us. Right?
I think,
it's a delicious looking
let there be a
challah.
challah. Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi
Let's just pretend. You have the biggest family represented here, so you guys.
And the Mostyn Gotro clan gets to keep that entire challah now.
Here, hold this.
So.
It's right. We don't
pass
spread
around
food around
anymore.
from family to family. They have
So
the
that's the
biggest
benefit of
contingent.
sitting in the front row now. Every service that you come to, whoever's there might get the challah to take home.
Biggest
They're
contingent
delicious.
right there.
And with that, we rise together for our closing benediction.
יברכך אדוני וישמרך.
May God bless you, and may God protect you.
יאיר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך.
May God's light shine upon you and shine through you.
יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום.
May God lift you up, giving you the strength to always bring your blessings out into our world. And most of all, may God bless all of us, here and everywhere, with peace.
וישים לך שלום. Shabbat.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, everyone.